Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Chris Thomas. My firm is 40W Advisors, and I am joined today by Fern Pessin. So hello, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
This is a re-recording of our introduction from a presentation that we did September 14th, 2023. We had some technical difficulties with the first recording, so we are just re-recording these first few minutes. Today's topic for the presentation you're about to watch is Tough Talks. This is part one of our three-part webinar series on caring for aging loved ones. And Tough Talks focuses around starting those initial conversations with your loved one about the fact that they might need care, and having those same conversations with maybe siblings or other people in your life that are going to help care for mom, dad, or whoever else it is that you are concerned about. Before we dive into that topic and hear Fern's wisdom on it, my name, as I mentioned before, is Chris Thomas. My firm is 40W Advisors. We are an independent wealth management firm. Our focus working with clients is to help create more time in your life while hopefully reducing your stress. We all know that finances can create a lot of stress in people's lives, so we try to play the role of financial advisors looking over everything that you have going on. We focus on financial planning, we focus on investment management, and we focus on overall financial administration. We're tackling this topic today, which may seem outside the box for a wealth management firm to do, because it's something that we've experienced a lot in our lives, and we hear a lot about and talk a lot about in our clients' lives. So after having all of these conversations, we finally got together and said we need to start addressing and helping people tackle this topic in a much more meaningful way, again, to help you deliver more time and less stress during what can be a very stressful time for a family. So who better than to help us than Fern Pessin. Fern, please go ahead and tell us more about yourself and how we came together.
Well, I'm not by nature someone who does the whole, nursing kind of a thing. But when my dad's Alzheimer's started getting worse and my mom and dad realized they weren't going to be snowbirds anymore, I moved to Florida to help them out. And mom was a cancer survivor, so I knew that she was going to have her ups and downs with taking care of dad. And I didn't realize how quickly I would need to be on duty 24/7, but it happened right away. And I became part therapist, part psychiatrist, part home cook, part big time driver, all these different things, until eventually in 2018, through learning process, how to have the conversations, my family finally agreed to move into independent living, which gave freedom to my mom and a different kind of peace to my dad, and it worked out great. Dad eventually passed away October 2021, and 2 weeks later, I was at the doctor and found out that I have an eye cancer that's really rare. So that was a whole different kind of caregiving stress about who was going to take care of mom if I was taking care of me and I was the only one in Florida. So we had more conversations about what's the best thing for her, what's the best thing for me, and she agreed to move up to assisted living in New York, where my sister and brother both have homes close enough to be able to take over the day-to-day kind of stuff that she needed. So I learned a lot through all of those conversations, and I just want to help other people that are going through those kind of challenges.
And you put all of your knowledge and wisdom into a book.
Yes, because in between taking care of them, I did a lot of journaling, and people keep saying, well, where's the list? Where's the list? And so I made the list. It's a big book, and it's full of worksheets and checklists and things to really help other people not have to go through all the stuff I went through. And they can just go, oh, I need to know this. I need to have this. I need to collect this. Boom, 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 boom. I'm done. And that ties right in with what you do, because it's all about knowing what you have, knowing where it is, and how to keep it organized and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, so it's great, and I'm just here to help. Let me know what you need.
So let's dive into today's topic then. Thanks, Fern.
Sure. In my life to help others find the answers, and to do that, you have to kind of figure out where you are and then create your list of what comes next and how you can engage other people, which we'll talk about today, and how to prepare and schedule before you need things. We'll talk about that. And then collecting and retaining these resources in your home for when something does happen, which if you're prepared in advance, you have a lot less stress. And we're all trying to get less stress. So we're going to talk about that today. These are some of the causes. I'm sorry, did you have something, Chris?
No, I just said that's the tie-in. That's why we're doing this. This is to focus on stress. So I know that's where you wanted to start things off. And sorry I'll let you roll back
No,
in there. I just
no.
realized my camera wasn't on. I know we had intended to share cameras here. Fern, you had a
glitch.
You had a glitch. Fine. I'll go on camera for a little bit. Makes it a little more personal if we're on camera. So I'll hang out on camera for a little bit, and if we do sometimes we run into bandwidth issues with that. If we do, I'll go back off. So.
Okay, I've got something popping on my screen. Just let me know if you all are seeing it. Okay, so some of the causes of stress, as you have probably read by now, are trying to get too much done, right? We wake up and it's like, okay, I have to do this and this and this and this for me, and then this and this and this and this for the person who's our loved one, and maybe this and this and that for our children, and possibly for our work. And we're trying to do it all. And the biggest problem for me was always that I just wanted to do the right thing, but I wasn't always sure what the right thing was. So that's what got me started on my quest to figure out how to have these conversations with my family without having them get angry at me, because that did happen in the beginning. And I'm sure you've all been in the middle of family conflict. It's somewhere along the line where you go, how did this happen? It was just a simple conversation. The other thing we as caregivers do, I'm sure there's a lot of nodding heads, is we try to do everything ourselves. And that is a formula for illness and dis-ease with our bodies. So we're going to try to help you guys figure out a way to not have to do it all, to get support from your family, to be appreciated for everything that you're doing, to make sure that Chris especially is going to make sure that you don't run out of money for all these effort you're putting in. And you know, we want to talk about your future as well as the people you're taking care of. And then every now and then something like a hurricane or a COVID pandemic or something like that comes and messes up all your plans. So what is it? Murphy's Law, right? So we have to kind of work around that. And hopefully this prepare in advance will help you avoid any kinds of glitches that can happen with that. So putting together your support team and learning to accept help from others goes along with communicating often. How often, right? So when I started caring for my parents, I realized, because I'm a catastrophe thinker, what if I get hit by a bus? What if I win a world cruise? What if I win the lottery? You know, I don't want to have to stay and take care of my parents when I have a brother and sister also. So I started communicating with them by emails and text messages and making sure that everything was in writing. So if anything happened to me, then they would be able to take over. So when I had this cancer diagnosis, I knew that my sister and brother knew everything and could still take care of my mom without me having to worry about mom on top of everything. So it's important to take care of yourself and move through all of the things that you're trying to do with a focus on keeping yourself healthy. General stress reduction programs that you've probably heard about, and people tell you, oh, self-care, go have a massage or a manicure or something like that. There's plenty of information out there, and there's some wonderful, wonderful programs. There's some awesome retreats you can take and all of that. But today we're going to kind of focus on avoiding stressful caregiving situations. And so we're going to start.
I forgot to mention earlier, but just to remind everybody, just because anyone registered for this program today is going to receive a digital copy of Fern's book. Her book is I'll Be right there. You can see I have a copy that's got our notes on it. It's a thick book. What it contains is we're going to talk, Fern's going to talk some specifics today and then at a higher level on some other things. But the book goes very into details with checklists and reminders on a lot of these very actionable things that you can do. And, over the last few months that we've been building out this series, I've read through the book, as have Sophia in my office, and we've you mentioned sending out emails to keep the family informed. If there's a primary caregiver, well, I know you're going to talk more about this later, but having a primary caregiver that may be local to mom and dad, putting things in an email to those maybe distant siblings to keep everybody informed is a great way to help you manage your time. Because anybody that's in that position, if you're running around taking care of your own kids, having your business, having a career or what have you, picking up the phone can just be a little bit more time consuming. You end up talking for, 30 minutes about another topic before you get into actually discussing what's going on with the person that's receiving the support.
Oh yeah, and you also wind up if you are like me, you're busy doing all your caregiving and family and work stuff all day, and so you're able to quote unquote talk at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. It's much better for the other person if you just write it in an email and send it than to try reaching out then when people are trying to get to sleep and wind down. You don't want everybody getting all wound up,
I just wanted to jump in, kind of highlight that point, because I thought it was a big takeaway I had from the book. So
thank you. Yeah. So this is the next slide is, who are you? Are you caring for a spouse? Are you caring for a parent's family, a friend? And whether you're the primary because you're local, or whether you're a long distance caregiver, full-time, part-time, all of that is different responsibilities and different emotions that go with that. And the emotions are almost more significant to your energy and stress than the actual physical. So we're going to talk about doing communication early to start, because early meaning not early in the morning, but early in the decline of the person that you're caring for, when people can still communicate, because as people age, things become problematic. I had a friend, a 40-year-old friend, she's in her 40s, sorry, and she had a stroke at night. Her husband kept her alive till EMS got there, and it took her a year to even know who her husband was again. So she lost her business because nobody had any of the paperwork, but also other things that happened. My dad has a hearing loss. COVID caused people to be intubated. You have dementia from people as they age, which is normal aging dementia, and then cognitive impairment from something like Alzheimer's or Lewy body or something like that, memory loss, emotional issues. I've seen people just shut down. They don't want to talk to anyone. And when somebody is in that state, you can't really ask them what they want for later in life. So doing this early is important for those reasons. And the things that we avoid are talking about illness, talking about end of life. There's some sort of feeling like if we talk about illness or end of life, we're going to make it happen. And in reality, when I carry an umbrella on days when it says it might rain and it doesn't rain, I feel good knowing that my umbrella staved off the rain. So if you talk about these things early, it doesn't bring it on. It just makes you more prepared when it comes. The other, money is a big one. Stopping driving. That is a really, really hard one, because that is all about people's independence and freedom. And in the book that you're getting is a whole entire list of ways to help somebody recognize that they need to stop driving, that you're not telling them what to do, but you're helping them recognize it. And then leaving home, right? Especially if it's the house where your whole family grew up and lived for 30 years, 40 years, whatever, it's really hard to leave that home or to bring in strangers to help. So why start now? why not wait, which is what people like to do, because it doesn't work the first time. And all those topics are things that are going to be hit on eventually if you're caregiving. So you have to kind of approach it in small steps at family gatherings, at one-on-one conversations, a dinner, a lunch. So you have to keep sort of putting it in the conversation until you can have a full conversation. People say, oh, that never happens. And my elder care lawyer said, until it does. So he has seen so many times when people said, no, they're not like that. No, they'll never hit me. No, they'll never. Oh, whoops. Yes, it does. So you want to get to people and get all this taken care of, so that people feel when things are going on that it was their choice. My father did not want to move into independent living, but he knew that for my mother to be taken care of when his Alzheimer's got worse, that this was a smart move. And when he was upset about the food or upset about the hallway or something like that, he said, I'm not mad at you. Don't worry. I know I made this decision for your mother. I'm not mad at you, which was nice to hear. But it was him recognizing that it was his decision. And that's what we would like. We'd like people to feel not like my kids dropped me off here and left me the keys, as my mother's friend Ruth had happen, or you have so much going on that you try to rush it all at the end, and then people feel like they're being pushed. So start early. These are the reactions that I hear from my friends and that I had was people saying to me, who put you in charge? You're not my mother. I'm your mother. You are not the boss of me. Let's go to third grade, right? So how do you have these conversations? One of the ways to start it more delicately is to look at articles. This article that I have up here is from AARP. And if you were to bring an article like that, just like any conversation you would have with friends at dinner, you say, did you see that article? Or did you get that meme on your Facebook page, et cetera, and it starts a conversation, you can just say, hey, I found this article. What do you think about this? How do you feel about this? And just, it's not you telling them what to do again, but it's you suggesting that there's something that you want to look at. You can bring up a neighbor who had a story that is similar to what you're going through, share something personal. Those kinds of things will help you start a conversation. If you go to 40W's website, this is one of their blogs. Estate planning is family planning. And if you guys all have your money being managed by them, you can pull this up and say, look, this is what 40W recommends, right, Chris? Chris?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute there. Yeah, I think just in general there, the for me, and I think again, you're going to hit on this again in a little bit, but I think that oftentimes we serve as the professional in the conversation. So if you can start a conversation with a family member around the fact that, hey, my financial advisor, or maybe it's my attorney or somebody, if you can point to a professional and make it more of a business conversation and less of an emotional conversation, oftentimes it can be better received in that context. And we get involved in that all the time with our clients and their families, and when we try to just facilitate conversations. But by virtue of us being there, it puts it more on a professional, maybe less emotional level, at least while we're in the room. I don't always know what happens when we leave the room. But it does just help it gets the wheels turning and it gets the juices going on a conversation. So that's true, again, not only with us, but it can, other professionals if that's the right approach for you and your family to take.
Yeah, so we'll get into it in a little bit, but basically if it's a medical issue, you might ask a doctor. If it's a legal issue or something that has to do with paperwork, healthcare proxy, even anything like that, you would ask maybe a lawyer, or you can do a mediator. So I put this in here because I had a friend who was very close with his family. And his father passed away. He went to the funeral home. The guy was working him real good and said, don't you want the best for your dad? Don't you want everything to be, didn't he deserve this? Blah, blah, blah. And my friend spent $13,000 on a funeral. And it was going to take him 5 years to pay that off. And a couple of months later, after he had grieved and he went into his dad's house to start emptying everything, he found a prepaid cremation. So not only did he spend money that he didn't really have to spend, but it was a cremation that his father wanted, not a burial. So at that point you say, oh my God, what do I do? Do I dig him up? I mean, it's like, oh, not good, not good. So this is why the conversations and asking what people want can help you from avoiding costly and mistakes that are not the way your loved one would have wanted. So another story. And all along the way, again, it's not just you. So ask for input from your siblings, parents, these professionals that we were just talking about. Ask them for their thoughts if you don't know the answer immediately, and it's okay for you not to know the answer. And when you share with my siblings, we made sure I never went to my parents with something I thought was right until I made sure my sister and brother were going to be on the same page. Because having a tug of war where your parents feel like, oh my God, if I say yes to Dawn, then Fern and Mitchell will think I love Dawn more than them, and that kind of thing. So you want to ask for input and get on the same page. This is kind of an emotional difference in the conversations. The scolding finger, you should, you have to move, you need to stop driving, those yous are immediate defensive reaction from people. So we don't want to approach somebody with a command or a direction. We want to come from a place of how it makes us feel. To get my mother to stop driving, we went through a whole bunch of logistical things of why she shouldn't be driving. But the thing that made her stop was my father at that point saying, I'm terrified when you're out there and I don't know where you are. I'm so worried that you're going to be in an accident and I'm not going to have you anymore in my life. So it was about how he was feeling that made her stop driving. So think about when you're about to approach somebody on something, can you share with them why you feel this decision would be a good decision from your perspective, as opposed to telling them what they shall or must do. None of us like to be told what to do, right? Then, if you can't get your siblings on board, which I have heard lots of stories about that, then you can use somebody from the outside, which is what Chris was talking about, a lawyer, a doctor, a financial advisor, a family friend, or someone like me. I'm a mediator and I will have conversations. I had a conversation with a friend who was marrying her third marriage, marrying a very wealthy guy. His kids were worried that she just wanted the house, the beautiful house that they grew up in, and they were very upset about them getting married and didn't want it to happen because of this particular house and all the things in it. So I was able to have a conversation with them to talk about all the options for moving out of the house, to take care of their dad who had a debilitating disease that was growing and going to get worse over time, and how to find a place that would take their two big German shepherds, which was incredibly important to them, and so on. And by the end of the conversation, and by the way, they all had the book to go through, so they were able to look at all the options, and at the end they were able to all get along, and the marriage went ahead, and everything after he passed was done peacefully, and there was no mystery about anything. So think about inviting other people into the conversation if things aren't going the way you thought they should or would go.
And Fern, something else that I wanted to stress and point out related to siblings. When there's one maybe primary caregiver, maybe it's the person that's most local, and they're trying to coordinate with siblings that maybe they're local or maybe they're out of the area. But one of the things in the book that I thought was really helpful is that you talk about letting siblings come in on their own level. So it's knowing what cards you're kind of dealt and who you're dealing with, I mean, you know your siblings, right? Maybe not all siblings get along, but you know your siblings, you know their strengths and their weaknesses. So for instance, I think use the example of if there's a sister or brother across the country and they want to help out, but they're just not local. They can't do some of the day-to-day tasks that we're going to talk about in a minute. But maybe they can't. What can they do? And you're allowing them to come in so that they feel like they're helping, and you're telling them that from the beginning. That way they don't feel stressed out, like they're not carrying their weight, because when they start feeling that internally, that can trigger some conflict between, that can kind of stall conversations early on. So it's that whole concept of letting people come in at their own level that you talk about in the book that I think is really, really useful.
I was going to touch on that in a little bit, but yeah, I'll go on that now. Yes, when my sister and brother were in New York and I was in Florida, so I was primary. And when it was time to find an independent living community, my sister was able to do all that research online and get that to me. When my father needed a camera put in because he was a fall risk and he had fallen and he could die because he was on Coumadin. My brother, an IT guy, came in and visited and installed the camera and all the Nest thermostat thing, so my father could say into his phone to change the temperature, all of these things. So my brother was able to do the IT stuff. My sister was able to do the online shopping and the research stuff. And I think that everyone has something to offer. And once you figure out all the things you need to do, you can step back and say, you know what, I don't have to do all of this. So-and-so can do it, so-and-so can do it. And we'll talk a little bit about what those things are that people can do in a second, but thanks for bringing that up. And one of the things to break a conversation open might be something like this. We hope you'll live forever, but since that's not likely, we want to make sure we honor your wishes and desires. And that's a nice way to say this is about honoring you as opposed to doing what we want. We're not after your money. We're not looking to make sure we have the most inheritance and things like that. There's something called the 5 Wishes at 5wishes.org, and you can download it or have them mail you one that goes through a ton of questions that you can discuss over a year or all in one session with your family. And if everybody fills it out, my sister, my brother, me, my parents, we all filled it out so that it wasn't, okay, we just want to take charge of you. It's something we all do because it's important to know if something happens, what do you want? What makes you comfortable in a hospital? What makes you comfortable at home? Where do you want to be when you're in pain? And so on and so forth. And the other thing no one has ever said is, I think I'm going to have a stroke today. Let me get my things in order for the family. So this goes back to planning ahead of time and having everything ready in case something comes up. You can tell your family, I don't need to know the details, but I do need to know where the information is in case something happens. And this is important because I have a friend, for example, that she doesn't want her kids to know that she's basically spent her retirement savings starting a new business. She doesn't want them to know that right now. And I have another friend, a different friend in my caregiver group who has more money than she wants her kids to know because she doesn't want them fighting over her money. She wants them to believe she has less. So there are lots of reasons why you may not want your information out there, but the information has to be collected somewhere. You want to talk about this, Chris?
No, I'll just point out that, something that families we work with have found very helpful is our financial portal. It's a financial organizer that helps you gather and collect all of your financial information. You can aggregate all of your accounts in one place. So this is just a reporting tool. So it's one kind of personal financial website that you can go to see your entire financial picture. So you can link your various accounts, and it has a vault. If you see across the top there, there's a vault feature, which is just, it's a secure cloud storage area where you can store estate planning documents, powers of attorney, will, any important documents that you think people should have if you on hand, if something were to happen to you, they can go in and they can access this here.
But yes, and that's the important thing, is that the code to get that is what you can give them, so that they don't have to have all the information now, but just if something happens. My information, just FYI, is in an envelope with a wax seal. So I know if anyone's opened it early while I'm around. So you can make up your own way to secure it. You can leave documents with the lawyer. Not to promote my book or anything, but in the book are all the places to fill in all of this information. You fill it in and just give the book to your lawyer and say, if something happens to me, these are the kids, or these are the friends, or these are the people who should be able to get this book, and it has everything they need.
Right. So whether it's our tool or another tool, having everything aggregated in one place is a very important thing to do.
Yes, and notify a couple of people about where that is and how to access it. And when you change your passwords, remember you have to change wherever you put your information, you have to change that everywhere. And I recommend using a password protector program, because as we get older, we forget our passwords, and we have so many passwords. So if you're not already involved at that, you can just do a search for a password protector program and find one that works for you. And this goes back to what the lawyer said, that never happens until it does. She isn't like that until she is. So there's a first time for everything. So this is a pretty common scenario. I just went through this with some friends who had someone pass away and they needed to get the funeral planned. But this is more common, where somebody falls, goes to a hospital, and then the hospital calls and says, we're discharging them in 5 hours. Where do you want us to send them for rehab? And if you don't already have a rehab place, you're scrambling. And maybe you're at work and you're in the middle of meetings, and you have to then start doing internet research on what rehab takes the doctors, the insurance, is near, close by, all of that. So having that information in advance, or maybe they'll say we're discharging a person and they need physical therapy for 8 weeks. So if they're doing 8 weeks, like, who's taking care of the dogs when they can't walk? Who's providing food if they can't cook? Who's doing baths, bandages, et cetera, on this list? So it's about being prepared in advance by first getting a support team, and then having everything that needs to be done figured out, who can help me with that. So the support team could be doctors, a dentist in case of a chipped tooth or something, lawyers, financial advisors, a money manager. My friend went to people's homes and filled out checks for them, and the family was like, oh my God, thank God somebody is helping them make sure they don't get ripped off by some charity scam or whatever. Nurses and aides also are part of the support team. Long distance children, everyone can help and be part of the team. Some people can send money, some can schedule appointments, some can do the web research, as we talked around earlier, some can arrange for deliveries, and people can call for reports from anything from doctors to the internet to cable services, et cetera, when that needs. And then the long distance siblings or relatives can also provide respite for the primary care and come into town occasionally for either a weekend or a week and give the primary caregiver a break. And as long as you're communicating and everything's up to date, then you know what to do. And you don't have to do a big orientation, and you don't have to feel like, well, I can't leave for a week. What if something happens? They don't know what to do. So when you have well-meaning friends and family, and I'm sure you've heard this, like, let me know if you ever need any help. And then they go, bye, they're leaving. And you're figuring out, oh my God, what am I going to give them? How am I going to get them to help? And that's where doing a list of everything that needs to be done helps. And you can accept help from others if you know how to delegate. So review somebody's daily schedule from wake up to sleep, and then break that into small tasks. If something like feeding somebody takes some time, or entertaining somebody with a conversation, a movie, cards, you can ask someone else to come over and do those kinds of things. And it's much easier for them to say yes if they know that it's just a small part. When they say, what can I do to help? And you say, I don't know, why don't you just come over? They don't know if you're going to ask them to give a bath, or if they're going to have to take someone to a toilet, or they're going to have to do something that makes them uncomfortable. So break it into tasks that there's manageable. Maybe somebody can add groceries to their list when they're out shopping and just bring you by the groceries, or they can stop and pick up prescriptions at a pharmacy. So figure out who can help with each thing, say yes when someone offers, and just hand them a task. These are some of the things that you might need help with. You might need a driver, an IT person. You might need someone to come and teach your loved one how to do a Zoom and not have their knee in the camera the whole time. Hello, Mom. You might need someone to help with pet sitting, or dog walking, or housekeeping, or cooking, or something like that. So think through all the people that your loved one knows, all the people that you know, and see if they're offering to help, how you can slot them into those. And as we talked about earlier, you should have a medical rental place if you ever need a wheelchair or a hospital bed, medical supplies if you need crutches or bandages, syringes. These are places that should be on the list before you actually need them, so that you don't stress out. Getting hospice that's in your neighborhood. Hospice is a free service in most communities, and just knowing who they are when things start getting worse, not waiting until they're already so bad that you're drowning. Rehab center, like I said earlier, assisted living, independent, etc. Mostly the point is that we are not mind readers. So if you are keeping information from your family because you assume that they'll just know what to do, just know that my mother and father wanted completely different things when we were filling out the 5 wishes, and they looked at each other and said, what? So ask the questions, because not everyone has always been clear, and they may have changed their mind over time. So things like having a DNR or a DNI, do not intubate, or having a prolong my life even if it makes me uncomfortable, versus I just want to have the most quality of life for as long as possible. So those are things that you want to know so that you're able to help your person have their best life for as long as possible. And you need to share those wishes with your family, because if you're a caregiver and something, God forbid, happens to you, who's going to pick up the slack with your life and or the caregiving?
Yeah, just to jump in again there and emphasize the point that I think is really helpful, is that the delegation of tasks, letting caregivers know, the caregiving team, whether it's siblings or friends or what have you, delegating to them, getting their input on what they have time for, what they want to do, but being very specific of what you're asking them to do. It's sort of like, if you ask somebody, where do you want to, the conversation that maybe a lot of us have going out to dinner with family or something like that is, what do you want to eat tonight? And then, I don't know, what do you want to eat tonight? And then, what movie do you want to watch? And then it snowballs into, just kind of an uncomfortable back and forth for a while until you end up just going to the same restaurant you always go to. So I use that as an example of just conversations that when we're being very specific of what we're asking, people know very specifically what they're saying yes or no to. That allows them to know going in how much time it's going to take out of their schedule, but it's also letting them know exactly, what the expectations are for what they're going to need to do. So I thought that was, again, that's something that was in the book. We've talked about a lot over the last month or so, Fern, But again, I think being very specific for what you're asking other people to contribute is very helpful.
Yes, and as people get a little older and making decisions becomes a little difficult, things like asking, would you like to go to Burger King or Ruth Chris Steakhouse tonight? Or did you have another idea? That takes such a huge burden off people. And the same when you're asking them, would you be able to pick up some groceries or drop this off at somebody's house? That works. If you have other caregivers in your network, you can say, hey, can I drop mom off to have a conversation with your mom for a few hours? And I'm going to go run some errands. And then next week, you can drop your mom off with me and I'll watch them. And it's kind of like the same things you did when you had little kids, you know, play dates, and you work out the network so that everybody's helping everybody. It makes it much more doable, approachable. Okay, so we have a little bit of time before questions. So these are some.
Sorry, Fern, I was just going to say we're bumping up to the 45 minutes. So I want to just remind everybody at this point that if you do have a question, feel free to type it into the questions box. But I know, Fern, I think this is really what you're about to cover right now is very helpful and useful. So hang with us for a few more minutes. Fern's got some good stuff here, but ask your questions in the questions box if you have them.
Yeah, so these are the fun things that I found because I had to make my life easier. I'm not embarrassed about that. So the first thing is use the words ICE, ICE, in case of emergency. So in your phone, in your favorites, put ICE. You see, I put my sample of my friends into your favorites, because if God forbid something happened, there was a car accident or something, and EMS comes, they're going to look in the phone to see who they should contact. So just put ICE next to people who would be your emergency contact, and put that, if you're caregiving for someone, put it on their phone. If they can't do phone stuff, they're not techie, or like my dad, they still wanted just a flip phone, just type out a label with who are the emergency people and tape that to the phone, so if somebody finds it, they'll know who to call. And
is ICE like a known acronym to emergency response people?
Yes.
Okay, didn't know that.
Yes. Yep. And also keep it in the car. In Florida, where I was, Delray Hospital had what they call the yellow dot program, and you got a sticker for your car window, and then they gave you a cardboard thing to fill in with all the important information for your loved one in case they were in the car. So that could be something that you do. And again, that's also in the book. So just look it up. It's in the book. You'll have all the information. There's a company called Vial of Life, and this has all the information that you would need, like for an EMS person to take with them, with insurance and blood type and all of that kind of stuff. So take a look at that at Vial of Life and see if you want to keep that. It comes in a tube that's attached to a magnet, which you keep on the refrigerator. And EMS are trained to go to the refrigerator to see if there's any information on there. So even if you're not using Vial of Life, keep your information on your refrigerator or next to the doorpost when you're leaving the house. And it's where the EMS would be going out, not like the garage door or something like that. Fun gadgets. Make a smart home for your loved one if they're aging, especially, or if they're unable to move a lot. And you can avoid boredom by letting them talk to a Siri or a Alexa, Cortana, play this music, or where was Frank Sinatra born? Those kinds of things. And it actually keeps their brain engaged and prevents Alzheimer's type dementia stuff from coming on. And also it can help, like in an emergency, they can just yell out, call 911, call my daughter, etc. And they can have food delivered. If you want them to do that, you can teach them how to do that.
Great way to settle arguments and to get through a crossword puzzle a lot quicker.
Yeah. So, and the other thing I talked about earlier, doing a Nest thing, which allows you to control temperature. So I don't want to get out of bed because maybe I might fall if I have to walk in the dark. So I can control and make the room cooler, warmer, etc. from my Nest, or you can do Wemo or the old TV clap on with the lights. Just make it easy for people to be comfortable at home without relying on other people. And then I just put in there Roomba or iRobot or whatever, which keeps dust from building up so it can run at night to avoid infection or illness, bugs, rodents, things like that if people are living alone. Just you want to make sure that it parks before anyone's wandering around in the dark and will trip on it. So just think about who you're doing it for. And in the end, I just want to say you can do this. If you're just starting, hang in there. You're amazing to do this, and it is a really important role. Our society, our country could not function without caregivers. So even if your family doesn't say so, you will be rewarded by the universe and by karma. So hang in there and enjoy the time you get to spend with the people you love, and take good care with that. Mark,
Yep.
Go ahead, Chris.
No, thanks. We're right on time. I didn't think we could do it. Between the two of us, we're talkers, Fern, so we did it.
I didn't breathe the whole time.
We'll breathe now. As you guys can tell, Fern is very passionate about this, has a lot of knowledge from her own experience that she has, but because of that experience that she's doubled down, done the research, talked to experts, and really become an expert in this area of caregiving. So because of that, and because it's such a large topic to tackle, as I mentioned before, this was just part one. Part two, we have scheduled for, we try to do these almost kind of quarterly. So January 11th, we're going to do one just about getting organized. We talked briefly today about ways that you can organize some of your financial information or store some of your, use the 5 wishes and things of that. We'll dive a little bit deeper into how to get organized, what things you should look to organize in January. And then we're going to follow that one up in April when we start talking about, okay, now we're in a situation where, mom, dad, or whoever really need more assistance. What are the different care options, and what are some of the things to consider when navigating home health care, assisted living care, nursing home care, adult daycare, informal care from other providers? We're going to talk about all of that, the differences between them, how to research them, and everything else. So mark your calendars for those dates. Also, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to send out a digital copy of Fern's book to everybody that registered today. We'll include a PDF of the slides that we went through today. And we will have eventually a recording up of this presentation as well, that we'll have that on our website at some point that you'll be able to view and to share with others. We'll let you know when that's up. So with that, I don't know, Fern, if you want to flip to the next slide just so everyone sees contact information. Just contact information for us, contact information for Fern if you have any questions. Again, I want to thank everybody for your time today. Hope you found it to be really useful. And Fern, anything you've got to add?
Nope, just this new book that's coming out, When Can We Talk, is specifically everything we talked about today, but it's in much more detail. So it's all about communicating, like with doctors, how you get information from the lawyers, how you move forward with people who are unable to communicate what they want, how to read them, how to understand the signs, know when they're in pain. All of that is in When Can We Talk, and that's coming out soon. And if anybody, actually within the next couple of weeks. So if they're interested, they can go to Amazon.com, look for Fern Pessin, and follow the author, and you'll be notified by Amazon when it comes out.
Awesome. I didn't see any a couple questions in the questions box, but I think we hit on them during the course of the presentation. So good. Again, if you found this helpful, please share it with people that weren't able to join today, friends, family, whoever, and let them know about the one that we have coming up in January. So again, thank you everyone for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.